Welcome, traveler, to the village hearth. Listen, there it is, on the roof. Rain. It came in off the hills around dusk, and it has settled in for the night. The steady, patient kind that means to stay, running in little threads down the dark windows and drumming soft and even on the slates. There's nowhere you have to be in it. That's the best thing about rain, when you're warm and dry and tucked in out of it. It asks nothing of you at all. So let it fall. Pull the blanket up over your shoulder. Let your eyes close and listen to it a moment. And then, because the rain is here, and a night like this one is made for going somewhere it isn't, let yourself drift off. Not to our own cozy little village tonight, but past it. Out over the dark, wet hills and down the other side, 2 villages on. Far enough to be a full day's walk, out in the morning and there by evening. To a day that has already happened, the longest, brightest day of the whole year, the summer solstice, with not a cloud in sight. And to a girl named Willow, who went out on that long day looking for one small thing and came home with a great deal more. So make yourself warm and let's begin. 2 villages over, tucked into a fold of the green hills where a stream comes down off the high ground, lies a village smaller and quieter than our own, where, until rather recently, Willow lived. She had grown up in the low stone house at the end of the row, the one with the green door and the herbs her mother kept in a pot on the step. And a year ago she had left it. Not far, only the 2 villages over, but far enough to be a leaving. She had come back for the solstice, as you do for the days that matter. She'd walked over the morning before, in the long, cool light, got in late, and her mother had kept supper warm as mothers do. There had been that particular gladness of stepping into a kitchen you have known your whole life. Her own narrow bed under the slope of the roof, and a sleep with no edges to it. Then she'd woken early, the way she always woke, to a square of gold laid across the wall, and the whole long day waiting ahead of her. There was always, to Willow, a day to get on with. This was the thing about her. It was the thing her mother despaired of, fondly, and the thing her master, Corin, was working on, slowly. Willow was a person of forward motion. Not flighty, she finished what she started every time and finished it properly. But she liked to be doing. She liked a task with edges on it, a thing that could be got and got well and crossed off. Standing still made her itch. Waiting made her itch worse. When she had decided to learn her blaw, and she decided it the way she decided most things, all at once and all the way, she had pictured it suiting her down to the ground. Go out, gather the plants, make the remedies, help the people. Brisk, useful, done. It had not turned out to be brisk. That was the part nobody had warned her about. Corin had sent her off for the solstice with 2 things. The first was a small book, new and blank, the spine still stiff, its pages waiting to be filled. Every herbalist worth the name keeps one of these. In the end, he'd said, pressing it into her hands at his door with that mild, unhurried look of his, the one that always seemed to be considering something just past your shoulder. Yours can start now. You'll be over your own way, where different things grow than grow here. So write down what you see. Draw it, if you can manage. Not for me, for you, so you'll remember you were looking. She had taken it a little impatiently, if she was honest with herself, which she usually was. A book of empty pages. It had seemed like the sort of thing you're handed to keep you busy. Homework, near enough. And she had not caught the weight in what he'd said, the every herbalist worth the name, that he had handed her something he believed she was already on her way to becoming. She had not yet understood that the keeping busy was the lesson, and that her master did very little at all by accident. The second thing was the errand. There was a herb, miner's friend, the old people called it, and we'll come to the why of the name, that grew in the green hills over Willow's Way, and hardly at all near Corin's. It tends to hide itself, and won't be hurried to grow any faster than it wants. He was forever short of it. Half the village wanted it, and so his stock of it ran thin and stayed thin. You've been with me a year now. I'd have you bring me back some miner's friend while you're home. It's the hardest thing I've sent you for. Most folk walk right past it. A year ago I couldn't have asked it of you, but I think you're ready for it now. There had been something in the way he said it. You're ready for it now. Not quite a question, not a settled fact either. It had lodged in Willow somewhere under the ribs and stayed there. She wanted to bring it back. She wanted to walk into his workshop and set it down on the bench and watch him see that she had done it. Done it on her own, on her home ground, with no one there to point. She had turned the thought over the whole long walk day before. Well, she'd show him she could. So when the morning came up gold and cloudless, the longest day of the year with all that light in it to spend, Willow knew exactly what she meant to do with it. She was lacing her boots by the back step when Rowan found her. Rowan was 10, and like his sister Willow had been named for a tree. Their mother had done that, and never in all the years since given the smallest reason why. If you asked her, she only looked pleased with herself and talked about something else. So the family had long ago stopped asking and simply accepted it, the way you accept the weather or the color of your own eyes. Willow had spent a fair part of her girlhood quietly embarrassed by it. She was less embarrassed now. It is a strange thing when you think about it, to be named for a tree, and then grow up and find yourself apprenticed to the one man in 3 villages who talks to them. But she did not think about it very often, and certainly not that morning. He was at the precise age, too, where he had decided, with the whole serious force of his small heart, that his sister was the most interesting person who had ever lived. It had happened while she was away. She'd left a girl he squabbled with over the last of the bread and come back a herbalist, or near enough for Rowan, a person who knew the names of things, who'd gone off to live in another village and do important work with her hands. He had taken one look at this new version of her and fallen straight into orbit around it. He followed her about. He watched her with an attention she found, frankly, a little alarming, leaning in when she spoke as though she might at any moment say the one thing that explained the world. It is a great deal of regard to have all of that pointed at you. Willow did not quite know what to do with it. Her instinct, being Willow, was to keep moving so that it couldn't quite land. "Where are you going?" said Rowan. It wasn't really a question, it was an application. "Up past the top fields, into the woods." She pulled the lace tight. "Looking for a plant, for Corin. Can I come?" She nearly said no. She had a thing to get and she meant to get it, and a get goes faster alone. That was simple arithmetic, and Willow was good at arithmetic. But he was already standing there with his whole face open and waiting. In the way of a boy who has asked for something, he wants more than he'll say. And the day was long, and her mother caught her eye across the kitchen with the particular look that is not an instruction and does not need to be. "Keep up then," said Willow, "and don't pick anything unless I tell you." It was the most enormous gift anyone had given Rowan in weeks, and he received it by saying, "I won't," with such grave solemnity that she almost laughed. The way up went through the top fields, where the grass had gone tall and seedy, and the morning was already warm, and then the hedgerows closed in along the climbing lane, and the world got greener and cooler with every step. Willow walked the way she did everything, at a clip, with purpose, eyes forward. Rowan trotted to keep level, which meant that every so often he had to break into a small run, and he did it without complaint, asking her questions all the while. He asked her a great many things. What was the plant called? What did it look like? How would she know it? Did it have a flower? What was it for? Was it far? Was it much farther? What was that one? The white one, was that it? What about that one? Why not? How could she tell? And Willow answered, mostly, in the short way she had, because she was busy walking and the answers were the kind you give over your shoulder. Miner's friend, low, sort of sprawling. You'll see. Small flowers, not much to look at. For aching. No, not it. Because it's just dead nettle. By the leaf. Not far. The questions came faster than she could spend much care on them. And she did not, that morning, spend much care on them. She had a herb to find. They stopped once, because Rowan had discovered a snail making determined progress across the warm stone of a gatepost, and insisted it ought not to be hurried. He crouched beside it with both hands on his knees, watching as though something remarkable might happen at any moment. It's hardly moving, said Willow. But it is, Rowan said, just very slowly. She looked. It had, in fact, reached the next little patch of lichen. Huh. That seemed to satisfy them both. A little farther on, they passed a stretch of foxgloves, leaning pink against the hedge. Every bell busy with bees disappearing into the flowers and backing out again dusted gold. Rowan stopped for those too. Do they know which flower to go to? Not exactly. Then how do they decide? Willow opened her mouth, closed it again, and watched another bee vanish into a blossom. Practice, I suppose. Rowan considered this as though it were the sort of answer worth carrying a while, and they walked on. It was past the second gate, where the lane gave out and the trees took over, that the wood properly began. Willow felt it the way she always did now, though a year ago she would not have noticed it at all. The change in the air, going from field air to wood air, cooler and greener, and somehow fuller, as though the wood was holding its breath, and you had walked into the held breath of it. The light came down in pieces through the leaves, and lay about on the floor of the place in coins. Somewhere off to the left, water. It was the sort of threshold her master never crossed without going still for a moment. She had watched him do it, that small pause just inside the trees, like a man taking off his hat in a doorway, and she did not do it herself. Not really, not like he did. But she slowed, just for a step, just enough to feel that she'd come into somewhere rather than simply come to a place. Then she got on with looking, and here is where the day began, quietly and without any announcement, to refuse to go the way Willow wanted it to. Because the thing about Miner's friend, the thing Corin had told her, the thing she'd nodded along to without truly taking the size of it, is that it hides. It is not a grand plant. It is small and low and dull, and it has the great inconvenience of looking, at a glance, like 3 or 4 other small, low, dull plants that grow in exactly the same green shade. There is a dead nettle it favours. There is a low, straggling mint it favours worse. To a person walking through at a clip, eyes forward, the whole soft floor of the wood is just green. 100 kinds of green, all crowded in together, all of them more or less the same green out of the corner of a hurrying eye. Willow hurried. She quartered the likely ground with her quick, efficient steps, the way you'd search a room for your keys, sure that any moment now the thing would simply be there. She crouched and lifted leaves and let them fall. She found dead nettle and more dead nettle, and the straggling mint, and a great deal of green that was nothing at all. She found a patch that made her heart go up, and crouched to it, and it was the mint again, and her heart came down. She straightened and pushed her hair off her face, and looked at the great green patient indifferent wood all around her, going on in every direction, with no particular regard for what she wanted from it. and she felt the old familiar itch come up under her skin, the waiting itch, the get on with it itch. "Is it this one?" said Rowan from somewhere near her elbow, holding up a fistful of dead nettle. "No," said Willow more shortly than she meant. "I said I'd tell you. Don't pull things up." He put it down. He drifted off a little way, toward the water, which had been calling to him since they came in under the trees, the way water calls to a boy of 10. And Willow let him go, and was glad a little to have the regard pointed somewhere else for a minute. She heard him down at the stream, talking to himself, or to the stream, turning over stones. She went back to looking. It still did not show itself. She looked for the better part of an hour, and she did not find it. And the not finding was a thing Willow had very little practice at, and almost no patience for. She was good at things. She found things. She got things done. And here was a small, dull plant somewhere in a wood it grew in, refusing to be got. And the more she hurried, the more the green blurred together into one green, and the more it blurred, the more she hurried. And somewhere in there the day stopped feeling like a day she was spending, and started feeling like a day that was beating her. She sat down on a fallen log, hard, the way you sit when you are cross. And because she was cross, and because she did not know what else to do with the crossness, and because it was the only other thing she'd brought up the hill to do, she took out the journal. She hadn't meant it as a calming thing. She meant it almost as a complaint. "Fine," she thought. "I'll write down that I didn't find it. I'll draw the stupid mint that keeps pretending to be it." And she opened the little book on her knee and uncapped her pencil, and for lack of anything better, began to draw the straggling mint, the real one, the imposter, the one she'd crouched to a dozen times that morning. She stopped once, not because she was finished, but because a breeze came through the trees and the whole patch of woodland seemed to move together, fern and nettle and bramble and leaves overhead, all answering one another in a slow green whisper. Somewhere upstream, water slipped over stone with the same patient sound it had been making all morning, whether anyone listened or not. Rowan had gone quiet by the stream. She could hear only the occasional clink of one pebble against another as he built and rebuilt whatever small important thing occupied boys beside water. For perhaps the first time that day there was nothing she was trying to accomplish. There was only the pencil in her hand, the page beneath it, and the leaf she was trying to see well enough to draw. And to see it well enough to draw, she had to look at it properly, which is a different kind of looking than searching is. Searching skates over everything, but drawing has to land. She noticed, drawing it, that the mint's stem was square. They nearly all are in that family. Square-stemmed. You can feel the four corners of it if you roll it between your fingers. She wrote that down. Square stem. She noticed the little teeth along the edge of the leaf, and how they sat, and she drew those too. She noticed that the leaves came off the stem in pairs, opposite each other, and the next pair turned a quarter way round from the last. She had known all of this. Corin had told her all of this, but she had known it the way you know a thing you've been told, which is not the same as knowing a thing you've seen. And sitting on the log with the pencil going, not hurrying anywhere, she found she was seeing it for what felt like the first time. And the wood, which had been one blurred green when she was hurrying through it, came apart into its pieces while she sat still inside it. That was all it took. Stillness, long enough for her eyes to do their proper work. And what had been one wall of green all morning was suddenly a dozen different greens, each plant itself and separate and particular. That one, and the dead nettle there, and the mint, and there, a little way off, under the edge of a holly where the shade pooled deepest, low and sprawling and dull and entirely unbothered, A plant she had passed a dozen times that morning and never once seen. She knew it before she'd crossed to it. She knew it from the way her master had taught her to notice them. There was a particular set to the way it held itself, a particular dusty green to the leaf that the imposters didn't have and couldn't fake. And now that she was still enough to see it, she could not think how she had missed it, except that missing it and hurrying had turned out to be, all morning, the very same thing. She went over. She crouched. She did what Corin did, though she didn't think of it as that, not in the moment. She looked first. The leaf was right. The dull, dusty green, the small teeth, the pears. She reached and rolled the stem between her fingers, gently, and felt the 4 square corners of it answer her thumb. That was good. That was the family. But the family had imposters in it, and Willow was a year in, not a lifetime, and a year in herbalist does not trust her eyes alone. There was one more thing to do. The last thing. The thing that no look-alike in the whole wood could ever imitate. She pinched a single leaf and crushed it soft between her finger and thumb, and closed her eyes, and brought it up, and breathed it in. And there it was, warm, sharp and clean, with a low spice down at the bottom of it, warm like ginger, but rounder than ginger, older than ginger, a smell that went straight past the front of the mind and landed somewhere deeper and more certain, somewhere that simply knew. The mint smelled green and bright. This smelled like a thing that had been easing aches since before anyone thought to write down how. With her eyes shut and the whole wood gone to sound and scent around her, the water, the leaves, the warm spice on her own fingers, Willow let out a breath she had not known she'd been holding all morning, and something in her chest came loose and settled, the way a held thing settles when you finally set it down. "Hello, friend," she said, quietly, just to it. She would have been embarrassed to be caught saying it. A year ago, she'd have thought it a foolish thing, the sort of thing Corin did, and she humored. She did not think it foolish now. There did not seem to be anyone there to think it foolish too. Her master had been trying to hand her this for a year, in his mild, sideways way, never once saying it outright, because it was never the kind of thing that goes in through the ears. She had nodded at the idea of it 100 times and thought that was the same as having it. It wasn't. She had it now, in her hands and her knees and the loose settled thing in her chest, which is the only way anyone ever really comes to have it at all. She did not, of course, think any of that. What Willow thought was, there you are, and I knew it. And under those, warm and uncomplicated, I can't wait to show him. "Rowan," she called. "Come here. Quiet now. Come and see." He came up from the stream at a run that she made him slow with a look, and crouched beside her, and she watched the regard come into his face, the leaning in, the open, alarming attention, and for once she did not move to get out from under it. She turned it instead toward the plant. "This is it," she said. "This is what we came for. Miner's friend. Why is it called that?" And Willow, who that morning had answered him over her shoulder, found that she was not in a hurry anymore, and that the answer was one she actually wanted to give him properly. "Because it eases aching," she said. "The deep kind. The kind that gets into a person's bones from a whole life of hard work. The bent-over work, the lifting and the cold and the damp, year on year, the sort that men used to bring home from the mines off east of here, when their hands wouldn't close right in the mornings anymore." She turned the leaf in her fingers. "Ginger helps. Most people use ginger, and it's good, and it's easy to come by. But this is better. This goes deeper, and it lasts. It's only that it's harder to find. It grows where it likes, and it won't be rushed, and it hides itself in plain sight among a dozen plants that look just like it. She glanced at him. Which you've spent the morning watching me learn the hard way. Rowan looked at the plant with new respect, the way you do when a dull thing turns out to have a story in it. How do you know it, though? You said the white one wasn't it, and it looked just the same to me. And here is where the day asked its second thing of Willow, quieter than the first, and harder, because she went to tell him. She opened her mouth to say, "Look, it's the leaf. See how it's toothed." And Rowan, 10 years old and burning to learn, lunged in to see and grabbed the wrong plant entirely, the dead nettle right beside it, and held it up triumphant. "This one? No, that's the dead nettle This one? The mint now? No, Rowan, this, the one Which? They're all the same." And he reached to pull the miner's friend itself clean out of the ground to look at it closer, the way a boy does. The whole plant, roots and all. The plant she had spent the entire morning learning to find. Wait. It came out sharper than she wanted. He froze, hand out, and looked at her. And the open face flickered, just for a second, toward the kind of small hurt that closes a boy down. And Willow felt the itch in her. The "let me just do it. Let me just show you the fast way. You're slowing me down." Itch. The one that had cost her the whole first hour of the morning. The one she had only just that minute learned to put down. And she put it down. She took a breath. She moved Rowan's reaching hand gently away from the plant. She did not do it fast. She made herself slow, the way you slow for a skittish animal. The way, though she did not let herself think it yet, the way someone had been slowing for her, patiently, for a whole year, every single day. "Here," she said, and her voice had changed. It had come down and gone even. "Don't pull it up. We never pull the whole thing if we don't have to. You leave it to grow more. Look. Don't grab. Just look first with me. See the leaf on this one? Run your thumb up the stem. Gently. Feel that. 4 corners. It's square. Now feel the dead nettles. Go on." He felt it. His face changed. "Square too, isn't it? They're cousins, those two. So the stem won't tell you them apart. You have to go to the leaf. And then, if you're still not sure..." She pinched a leaf, crushed it, held it to his nose. "You close your eyes and you smell." He closed his eyes. He smelled it, and his whole face did the thing. The thing Willow's had done not 10 minutes before. The small, astonished, "Oh." And he opened his eyes and looked at her like she had handed him a secret, which, in a way, she had. "It's warm," he said. "It smells warm. It does. Show me another. Show me how to tell the mint." And she did. Slowly. With her eyes forward, let's go nature standing at her shoulder the whole time, tapping its foot, wanting to be off and done. And her keeping it there, at her shoulder, and not letting it have the wheel. She showed him the mint, and the dead nettle, and the real thing 3 times over, because it took him 3 times. And on the 3rd time, something behind his eyes clicked into place, and he found the next one himself, a little way off, all on his own. "This one. This is it, isn't it? I can tell. Look." And he was right. And the pride that came up in his face was a thing Willow felt land in her own chest, like warmth off a fire. And it was there, watching her brother find his first plant, that the size of the thing finally came home to her. This was hard. Teaching was hard. Standing there with the answer in your hand and a person beside you who wanted it and could not yet hold it. Going slow when slow was agony. Saying the same true thing a 4th time in a new shape. leaving the plant in the ground when it would have been so much faster to yank it up and show. All of it, every part of it, was the very thing she had no gift for, and the very thing that cost her the most. And Corin had done it. Corin had done it for her, every day, for a year. With that mild, unhurried look that she had sometimes, she felt the shame of it now, that she had sometimes found a little slow. She had thought him gentle, because gentleness came easy to him. Standing in the wood, with her patience worn down to the last thread by one eager 10-year-old, she understood, all at once and completely, the way she understood most things, that his gentleness had never been easy at all, that it was the hardest one thing he had, that every patient, unhurried hour he had ever spent on her had been, in its quiet way, a kind of gift she had not known the price of until she'd tried to give it herself. She did not say any of this to Rowan. You don't. It would have meant nothing to him, and it wasn't his to carry. She just kept showing him plants, slowly, in the green shade, on the longest day of the year, and somewhere underneath, she made herself a small, private promise to thank her master properly when she got home, in a way she hadn't known he was owed until that morning. So they wandered farther than Willow had meant to. Every few steps, Rowan would stop and point. This one. Sometimes he was right. More often he wasn't. Each wrong answer became another chance to kneel in the moss and look again. They found a patch of tiny white flowers that neither of them knew, and Willow copied them into her little book with a question mark beside the sketch. They found a feather striped silver and brown that Rowan tucked carefully into the pages for luck. They found sunlight caught in a spider's web, turning every thread into something too bright to be entirely real. And because nobody was hurrying anymore, they noticed all of it. They came down out of the woods in the long gold of late afternoon, the two of them, with Miner's friend wrapped soft in a cloth in Willow's bag, enough of it, gathered careful and never more than a place could spare, and Rowan talking the whole way down about square stems and warm smells, and which plants were cousins to which, the way a boy talks when a door has been opened in him that won't be closing again soon. The solstice was coming on as they walked back into the village. You could feel it the way you feel a held breath before a celebration, the day refusing gloriously to end, the sun taking its slow, sweet time at the top of the sky, in no more hurry to go than it had been all the long, bright day. And down among the houses, the first signs of the evening to come. Someone carrying a long table out into the lane. The smell of baking from more than one door. A stack of wood laid ready in the green for a fire that would be lit when the light finally went, which on this night of all nights would be late and slow and worth the wait. The whole village leaning toward the evening together. Willow's mother in the doorway with flour on her hands, and the particular smile of a woman whose children have come home, together, the younger one talking and the older one listening. There would be the fire later, there would be the long table, and the neighbors, and the food, and the slow midsummer dark coming down at last, over a day that had given every hour it had. Willow would be in the middle of it, but that part of the evening belongs to the village, and we'll leave it to them. The way you leave a warm lit room, you're glad simply to know is there. Because before any of that, while the light was still gold, and the house still quiet, and the fire not yet lit, Willow went up to her old narrow room under the slope of the roof, and sat on the bed, and took out the little book. And she did at last the thing it had been given to her for. She opened it to a clean page. She uncapped the pencil, and slowly, not hurrying, for once not hurrying at all, she drew the plant. The dull, dusty leaf with its small teeth. The way the leaves came in pairs up the square stem, each pair turned a quarter from the last. She wrote its name. She wrote where she'd found it, under the holly, where the shade pooled deepest. She wrote square stem and opposite leaves, and warm scent, like ginger but rounder, older. She wrote after a moment's thought, for the deep aches, the bone kind, better than ginger and harder to come by. And then she sat looking at the page a while, at the small, careful drawing of the small, dull plant that had taught her more in one morning than she'd have believed a plant could hold. And she added one more line at the bottom, in smaller letters, half for the book and half for herself. Found it by sitting still. Couldn't find it any other way. She closed the book. She set it in her bag, beside the cloth-wrapped herb, the two of them together, ready. The thing she'd been sent for, and the proof that she'd done it. Both bound for Corin's bench when she walked back over in a day or two. She thought about setting them down in front of him. She could already imagine the little smile he would try and fail to hide. He'd said she was ready for it. Now she'd get to show him he'd been right. And more than that, all the rest of it. The patience and the wood and the square stem and her own brother's astonished face. Everything she'd carried home that no errand had asked for. She could not wait to show him. She found she was glad, alone in her old room, in the last of the gold light. And then her mother called up the stairs that the fire was being lit. And Rowan thundered past her door, already telling someone about Miner's friend. And Willow got up and went down and out into the long, warm solstice evening with the people she'd come home to. Carrying, without quite noticing, she'd set the day's hurry down somewhere on the stairs behind her, lighter than she'd come up. The fire would burn late on the green that night, on the shortest night of the whole year, with the whole village gathered warm around it. And 2 villages over in time, a herbalist would look up from his bench to find a small dull plant and a little book set down in front of him by a girl with something new and settled in her face. But that's a morning still to come, and there's no need to hurry to it. The good things keep. They find their way to exactly who they're for, at exactly the right time, and never one moment before they're ready. For now there is only the fire, and the long midsummer dark coming down soft at last, and a girl who learned the whole secret of her craft in a single, still morning under a holly tree. That the best things will not be hurried, and do not need to be, and are worth every slow minute of the wait. Back here, the rain is still falling, soft and steady on the slates, threading down the dark windows, asking nothing of you at all. The fire's burned down low and warm, and it's late now, and the rain means to keep on a good while yet, and there's nowhere at all you have to be. So let the fire settle, let the rain keep falling, and let yourself go down into sleep the way the long day went down into the dark, slowly and gladly and in no hurry whatsoever. The rain falls. The village sleeps now, and I hope so do you. From the village hearth to wherever you rest. Be well, traveller. Visit the village again soon.